Hey guys, Niklas here from Your Audio Solutions. Awesome to have you here this week again. This week we have Stephen Kelly from the website Understanding Audio. It was awesome talking to Stephen, and I think you, the listener or watcher, are gonna love it too. And in this interview, we spoke about Stephen growing up in Dublin, the twists and turns of moving to London and trying to do music for a living, electroacoustics and why that is beneficial or has been beneficial for Stephen, getting advice from Dave Pensado and why that made him move to London in the end, Red Hot Chili Peppers and why they were influential to him, like John Frusciante, for example, Californication. We also spoke about Stephen's website, Understanding Audio, and why he created it and why you should check it out and what you can learn from it. Working as an audio producer in the gaming industry and how he eventually got into the gaming industry. But before we get into the interview with Steven, I want to tell you about a free guide you can download right away. It's called 3 Tester Ways to Increase Your Client Base. And I created this guide for people who want to increase their client base. You're a home studio owner, you work in a studio, maybe you're a freelancer, or you're just starting out in the industry and you want to get your foot in the door. You can also learn how to earn more money by charging based on value rather than time, how to send emails to bands, how to market yourself to bands online. Again, I can get clients that way. There's a link to that below too. It's free. But now over to Steven. Awesome to have you here, Steven. So well, I know we just spoke here. I mean, the audience might see that, or you might not see that, but yeah, let's start out this interview with talking about a bit where you grew up, because I know you are from Dublin. You were playing in bands. You're not in London, but let's focus on the Dublin part of your life.
Sure. Well, I'll start off by saying that I'm not joining a Queen tribute band. This is for Movember. It's for charity. This is not my usual look. I'm not trying to be Freddie Mercury.
I thought it was cool.
I've gone very Shoreditch all of a sudden. But yeah, I grew up in Dublin. As far as I can remember, I've always been involved in music all my life. I wanted to be involved in music as a kid. So luckily enough, where I'm from, there's a very big music community. There was local choirs and concert bands, and I wanted to be involved in those from a very young age. Not really sure why, but I was just always fascinated by music. There's always music in the house. My mother played a lot of music in the house, so I was listening to the Beatles from a very early age, and a lot of music from the '60s. So I was always really interested, and got involved in these before I could join the choir because I was too young. I got involved in a concert band. Your first instrument is learn how to play the recorder. And then from there you get an instrument, and I was a trumpet player.
Ah, cool.
But that sort of community produced a lot of musicians. Some of the people that were in that, maybe not quite at the same time as me, there's a little bit of overlap, was Damien Rice and Paul Noonan from Bell X1. They had a band together called Juniper, and a lot of great musicians came out of this. But in the beginning, and my beginnings, they came out of this organized system, or I wouldn't really call it a system. It was all quite relaxed, but yeah, a lot of musicians just came out of these concert bands and choirs. And over the years, I've just always been involved in music. Played music all the way up through school. Was very, very interested in playing as much music as possible. And then in my teens, the trumpet probably wasn't the coolest instrument anymore, so I wanted to play guitar. A lot of my friends were learning how to play guitar, and I listened to, my brother had a copy of Californication. And I remember listening to that, and I just said, I want to learn how to play guitar like this guy, and just picked it up and taught myself from there. And
it's like John Frusciante, I guess.
I love John Frusciante, yeah. And when you listen to Frusciante, you get into Hendrix, and you go on from there. So guitar just became everything, really. It was all I wanted to do was play guitar and learn more about it. And then obviously you figure out maybe I should record some of this stuff. So from there I got a copy of Cool Edit Pro, which is now Adobe Audition, years later. Didn't know what I was doing. Started trying to record myself through the computer, and At the same time, I had like a guitar tab. I think it's Guitar Pro now, MIDI thing that I was trying to write guitar parts in.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, and it just evolved from there. And as things continued, heading towards university, I was playing a lot of rock bands already, and all of my friends were were playing in bands, and some of them had started studios, and it was just a really good atmosphere to be in, and surrounded by a lot of great musicians. So some of them had already gone on to university, some of them were still in school with me, and I was interested in studying music, but I didn't really know exactly where I wanted to be, exactly what did I want to study. Pure music, and I did all the entrance exams to do a degree in pure music, and actually was accepted into the course, but quite late in the day decided that I wanted to study music technology, because I've become very, very interested in music production and the other side of the glass. Having been in a studio a lot, I was always fascinated by, what's that guy doing over there and pushing all the buttons. Didn't really set out to be an audio engineer, wanted to be a producer, but knew that was a huge part of it. So that's how it all kicked off, really, and that's how the studio side of things really evolved.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds similar to how Sweden was when I grew up, because there was a strong support for kids to learn music. And I mean, I don't know how it is here in England, or if that was the case, or if they now are removing more and more of that support. Do you know, or?
I don't really know. I moved here very late, so I don't have a lot of exposure to
Sure.
the school system or what happens at that level. I know for sports and things like that, the funding in the UK is fantastic. But I'm not quite. I know as things progress and it gets towards a more professional level, there's great funding for the arts, but I'm not sure about, let's say, grassroots
Right.
music and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm not educated enough.
Yeah. I mean, but it's so important to have the support of music education for
Yeah,
kids, because yeah,
I know. Yeah, I know there are some programs for for kids in underprivileged areas. There are a lot of really good music programs that charities run and other organizations run, but the wider development of music from a young age, I'm not too sure about. I should really look into it.
yeah. I mean, I know in US it's crap. That's why, like we talked about Red Hot Chili Peppers, Flea. He has a school. I'm sure you know about that. That's
Yeah,
really cool and good. But it's fun that you said Red Hot Chili Peppers too, because that was my big inspiration as well growing up. Especially playing bass. Then I wanted to be like Flea, and then playing guitar, I wanted to be like John Frusciante, and then it sort of evolved from there.
yeah, they're quite an accessible band when you're young. I think Californication in particular and Blood Sugar Sex Magic
Yeah, that was the
are
record for me. Yeah.
they're the ones that really hooked me in. I was quite lucky because, like I was saying, my mother listened to a lot of music from the '60s and all sorts of different music, and my dad had his taste as well. A lot of sort of Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Bob Dylan, but my brother was listening to a lot of the '90s music, so he had all sorts of different stuff that he exposed me to. Um, like when Britpop was huge, he was listening to Britpop, and before that, he was listening to Nirvana and Guns N' Roses, and I got really interested in all of that as well. So I was quite lucky to have the influences around me, particularly my family, to kind of give me a decent taste at a young age. And yeah, there is something about those two albums that you listen to that kind of really inspires you to get into playing guitar or playing bass. I think the great thing about those two musicians and Chad Smith as well is they make semi-complicated and sometimes incredibly complicated playing sound easy. And that's what makes you think, oh, I want to do that. And then you actually try and learn some of this stuff, and it's not quite as easy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one record that I loved was also Stadium Arcadium. I thought that John Frusciante was really shining on that record. You know, there was so many cool guitar parts, effects, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
That's also what got me into loving Andrew Sheps, the
yeah,
engineer, etc. You know.
yeah.
But so, what was it about John's guitar playing that made you want to pick up the guitar, other than what you just said?
I don't know. It's a hard one to really. It's a hard one to really describe. I think because there's a lot of melody in it,
Hmm.
and I was always into melody and less into. I probably didn't understand a whole lot about chords, and even though I'd studied music theory, but how chords on guitar and the whole side of that, and he was very melodic. It was Californication, just those sort of disparate, not disparate, but the separation of the notes just kind of stuck in my head that this is a really clear guitar melody, and I'd heard a lot of that growing up as well. So it just opened up a lot of things for me, and it was just what I was listening to. It was what was cool at the time, and
Yeah.
I thought I want to be cool as well, but I've since failed at that immensely over the last 20 years.
But did you ever? Because they had a huge show in Slane Castle. Because I had that DVD and I watched it too many times as a kid. Were you there?
I was not at Slane Castle. I
Ah,
did see them. I did see them in Dublin on three separate occasions, but I didn't see them in Slane Castle. I saw them in Lansdowne Road
okay.
in 2002, which I think is just before By the Way came out.
Mm.
Lansdowne Road as a stadium no longer exists. It's the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. I also saw them at a festival called Oxygen, which also no longer exists.
Oh.
The fact that they no longer exist is not related to me. It's
Yeah.
just it just happened.
Mm.
But yeah, I have seen them live a few times when John Frusciante was in the band, and
Cool.
yeah, they were incredible.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine, man. I missed that era, unfortunately. Um, but let's go back to you, man. Enough about Red Hot, I guess. Because I know you. Okay, so you are in Dublin. You're in
Yep,
high school or whatever you want to call it. Um, and then did you study music? So did you study music in high school?
I did. I did study music in school. The tricky thing about studying music in secondary school in Ireland for me was that I had already done a lot of the music theory grades as part of my own music education. So it was still great. I had some great teachers, but that side of it I felt was kind of less of a challenge. But as it progressed, you started to study a lot of really incredible music. As I was getting to my leaving certificate, which is the equivalent of the A levels here or the exams you do before you go to university, the pieces that we got to study were amazing, and one of them was Bohemian Rhapsody,
Hmm.
and that was a big thing for me as well because you started to we didn't just examine the song as a whole. We examined the structure of the song, how it was written, but also how it was recorded, and how panning was used and how certain effects were used, and that started to really hook me and hook my ears into this is really cool. This is something that I'm really interested in. As well as that, we could pick a module as part of our practical exams, as well as playing, which I love playing. There was programming that you could do in Cakewalk Pro Audio, and all you had to do was take a piece of music and put it in notation, and then in the actual exam there were a few edits you had to make, and that was a part of your practical exam. And for me, that was a dream because I got to play with MIDI and put together a nice piece of music, and then on the day all you have to do is a couple of edits, and that's your whole exam.
Hmm.
So that's when all of that started to really sink in with me and made me. And like I was saying, I was also playing here and there in a couple of studios and playing live all the time. So I really wanted to pursue that a bit more, and that's where the interest in music technology rather than studying pure music came
Yeah.
from. So that's when I went to university. A music technology degree, a university degree, had opened up for the first time in Ireland. It was the first of its kind. So I went for that full steam ahead.
So is music technology How is that different from music, like pure music studies?
Well, the pure music studies at the time would have been more related to simply the study of music
Right.
and musicology, composition, whereas music technology was more focused on the studio,
Right.
sound design, electroacoustic composition rather than, let's say, standard composition. And there were lots of elements that were more focused on not so much creating engineers, but creating people who had an interest in both the studio side and also new ways of composing music.
Right.
So it was an experimental course at the time. It has since settled down a lot into a more defined structure. The structure on it then was very good, but it has evolved a lot since then.
Okay. Because then I know you also studied or you got an MA in computer music. So
Yep.
that sounds awesome to me, because I don't know what the hell it is. So what does the MA in computer music entail? Like, what do you do?
I still don't know. Uh, it was quite similar to the degree. A large part of the a large part of the degree and a large part of the masters as well was programming,
Right.
as in computer programming itself. Learning how to use programming languages, probably my least favorite part of it. Even though I do have an interest in computer programming, but very valuable skills. So the masters itself in computer music was more focused on acoustics and interactive systems, but also there was a large element of composition again. And I found that really fascinating. The composition parts of my degree and my masters were incredible because a lot of it was focused on electroacoustic music, and electroacoustic music is a very interesting art form because you'll be taking a selection of samples, like a lot of electronic music, that you might go and record yourself, sample yourself, and then create these often very long, evolving pieces that don't seem to have any rhythm or um, anything that can quite catch your ear. It's all about the manipulation of sound and how it evolves over time. I'm explaining it probably quite terribly,
That
but
sounds good.
electroacoustic music is really interesting, and it's very good to study that because it really tunes your ear into source material and the importance of having really good source material and how you can manipulate that and how you can create all sorts of different sounds. And people who study that and are interested in it tend to become very good sound designers.
Yeah, of
and
course. Does it
and
have to
that
do a lot with
really
synthesis too, or
you can
right?
it's quite open in how you compose, how you manipulate sound is quite open. It's more about the end product, which I found also very interesting and very cool. I I focused very much on the manipulation of the actual audio samples themselves within a DAW. At the time, for me, most of my music was made in Audacity, which meant a lot of crashes,
Right.
because the laptop at the time really wasn't able for it. So at the start, you do a lot of time stretching and reversing and things like that because you don't really know
Right.
what you're doing, and you think that reverse sounds are cool. And then you realize everybody else has done the same thing. So you have to start thinking a bit more about your music. And you start to look at synthesis and granular synthesis and,
Right.
what other plugins can I use and what sounds cool. And, if I use water samples and, like I said, granular synthesis or something like that, you get some really incredible sounds. And it opens your mind to a lot of different things, and it opens your mind to, perhaps taking a sound, sampling it and using it on a synthesizer or using it in all sorts of different ways. And like I said, it's highly applicable when it comes to sound design then. And that helped me out a huge amount as my career started to progress.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm jumping ahead here, because yeah, you working in games now, obviously, and that, yeah, like you said, that must have helped you, yeah, tremendously working with games. Because I guess my question is that Is your work, does that contain a lot of electroacoustic compositions then, or is it a whole mix?
Well, now is quite interesting. The company that I work with on the video game side of things is, well, it is almost entirely focused on the narrative. So
Mm.
it's focused on recording voices, casting and recording of the voices, and so mostly around actors
Mm.
and dialogue for video games. Of course, when you're thinking about that, you have to think of all the other elements around it. But primarily, my work in video games is around the dialogue. The electroacoustic side of things and sound design came into play the most when I was working on animation projects or on feature films or anything that involves creating a soundscape.
Mm.
So having studied that, it was very easy to adapt those skills to those projects and to start to get a real feel for, okay, I need to put in a sound of a crash here. Somebody's crashing through wood. But what's a good sample for that? What can I
Mm.
use for that?
Right.
Or there's a bone break, or there's a this or there's a that. If the sample you're listening to is totally off mic, or it's not clear, or it's clipped, or there's too much low end in it, you can screen that very quickly. You can also hear what's usable as source material and what isn't. So studying that was incredibly helpful, and then obviously going through the practice of that and having to adapt to what you're seeing on screen.
Mm.
Because all you're seeing is, especially in animation, you're hearing the character voices, you're hearing the scenes play out. You might have a score ready, or you might not, and you have to create the soundscape. So everything that you see on the screen, you need to create a sound for. If all of your sounds and your selection of sounds are poor, you create a very poor end product
Mm.
for the animation, and you're probably not going to get hired again.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting with games, man. That's because I used to be heavily into games as a kid. I guess many of us were. Then
Yep.
sort of lost interest or stopped playing for a while. Recently got into it again and find the whole thing very interesting, like with music and audio in general for games.
Yep.
Um,
Well,
but is
it's bigger industry than the music and film industry combined at the moment.
is it
Yeah,
shit? I didn't know.
Revenue wise, yeah,
Wow.
that's
Um,
insane.
yeah, it's crazy. But so if you're interested in getting involved with games, like doing music, is there a lot of coding, like with Wise, for example? Because I know Wise is a language software you use, right? Is that something you use too, or?
No, not at all. I would be classed as a novice when it comes to Wise, because what we do is quite niche.
Mm,
It really is. For my involvement in the games industry, there there are so many different avenues for somebody with an interest in audio to take within games. It's incredible. I have massive exposure to that, all of the different avenues that people can take, whether it be as an engineer in the studio recording dialogue, or in the studio recording source material for sound design, as a voice designer, somebody who actually takes all of these pieces of audio that have been recorded, all of these pieces of dialogue, and then gets them in game,
mm,
implements them, and does program in Wise and programs in the various engines that are out there. Then you've got sound designers, which those people are incredibly important. You've got composers, and you've got everything in between. You've got people who organize those teams. You've got producers. You've got somebody like me. So my job for the most part is as a producer or production manager, which means that when a client comes to us, because we are an outsourcer for pretty much every games company that there is, a lot of the big AAAs and a lot of the indie games companies as well. When they come to us, we need to find out exactly what they need, the requirements for their game,
mm,
how many characters they have, how many voices they might need, and then a lot of that is production work, and real production work, as in not really. you're not sitting there writing music all day as a producer. That is a type of producer. I'm talking more about budgets,
Yeah,
organizing
yeah.
things, contracts, often overlooked parts of being a producer and running a production, and just making sure at the end of the day, clients have this idea and this is what they want to achieve. We need to deliver those back to them and make sure that they're happy and it's just ready to slot straight into their game without any problems whatsoever.
Right.
So, like I said, if somebody wants to get into the gaming industry, there's an incredible amount of work out there. And there are so many companies that need good audio people. And if an easy foot in the door is as an editor, because editors can work from anywhere. You can be on a laptop on a train with noise cancelling headphones and you can be editing audio in Adobe Audition, which is generally used as the main forensic tool for cleaning up audio in the games industry. And any DAW will help you, but that's one of the better ones. But that's a great foot in the door for anybody interested in the games industry. For a few people have come to me, and that's how I've helped them out and get their start. It's always going to be more competitive to get an engineering job. Getting a sound design job is going to be incredibly competitive too.
Right.
Writing music for a big AAA game, you could be competing with Hans Zimmer for that. So realistically, you could. But there are lots of indie games out there. There are lots of trailers being made all the time. It's most certainly, it's not impossible to get your name on a title like that. It might not happen straight away, but if anybody's interested in getting into the games industry, then baby steps. Quickest way of doing it and getting exposure to titles and to how the industry works is as an editor, audio editor.
How did you get involved? How was your journey getting into the game industry? I know you moved to London to work in post-production, right? Was that the start, so to speak?
Yes. So when I was in Ireland, I took the standard route of working my way up from zero. I was quite lucky early on to get some music on a national ad campaign, TV ad. I had 2 pieces of music that circulated a lot, and that got me a couple of clips that I could show to studios that were looking to hire people. I managed to hit a studio at the right time that was growing. It was a one-person studio that was, the guy had built a second studio and he was looking for somebody to come in initially on a 3-month free work basis, essentially as an assistant, but that very quickly grew into a full-time position with me having my own studio, which was amazing, and us taking on all sorts of crazy projects over the next 3 years, hiring more people and helping him grow that business. It started to move into video, and now they're one of the biggest post-production houses in Ireland. But towards the end of my time there, we were working on a lot of animation projects, and I was really fascinated by that, really interested in it. We were also working on a lot of TV and a lot of feature films. Not a lot of feature films. We were working on feature films.
Right.
And that led me to want more. And I was always fascinated, always been fascinated by music, and I wanted to still work in music production, and I was working in music production. Getting into post-production at the time made the most sense, because when I graduated from university, it was 2009, and Ireland wasn't in the best place back then.
Right.
So getting a job in the creative field, and especially a job in music, was going to be harder than ever, because businesses were closing rather than hiring. And I was very lucky to get the opportunities that I did. But as things progressed over those years, I wanted to get more involved in music. I did. I had my own business. I was recording bands, and I was producing bands and writing with bands, as well as having my my studio day job. I was very, very lucky, and I just wanted more. So I hadn't ever, strangely enough, I had never been to London. I had friends who had come over here to work and to live, and just friends who'd come here to visit. But I said, you know what, I'm gonna give London a go. And the reason why is because around that time I actually had a conversation with Dave Pensado, which is a long story, on Skype,
Oh,
and he
cool.
helped me out a huge amount.
How do you get into
With,
contact with him back then?
it's a long story.
Feel free to tell,
Uh,
man. That's interesting.
there was I was a huge, and still am, I don't see it as much now, but I was a huge Pensado's Place fan and a huge fan of Dave Pensado because I just loved what he was doing, giving back to people with his amazing, incredible knowledge. And every time I watched one of his videos, I was just blown away by what he knew and
Right.
his way of putting it across, and just his way with people, and his interviews were amazing. And this opportunity popped up for Jack Joseph Puig had just opened a new studio. It's called the House of Rock, and it was multi-million-dollar studio. And there was a competition to go to visit it, or to the, I was not quite sure if it was the opening. I forget, it was a long time ago. And I entered it, and myself and a few other people won. So I was
But how,
I was on the
what was the
list.
competition? Like mixing or?
No, I think it was literally just you enter, put your email address in, and they were going to draw somebody out of a hat, or
Cool.
whatever way they did it. So I was just one of those people that was incredibly lucky to be selected. So I contacted Will, who was the producer of the show at the time, and I looked at all the I looked at all the terms and conditions, and I said, well, I can't fly out there because at the time I didn't have any money. So I just said to him, hey, look, I think there's no way I'm going to be able to get over there. Could you please give this prize to somebody else
Wow.
so that they can take advantage of it? So I got back to him straight away, and he was really grateful that I had said that, rather than them announce that I was one of the winners on the show and them having to do the whole thing again.
Yeah.
So I just said, look, in exchange for this, and I guess I was sort of saying, I know I can't go, I'm really disappointed. Could I ask Dave a couple of questions by email? Will was such a nice guy that he put me in touch with Dave.
Nice.
I asked Dave, could I ask him a couple of questions, and he said, hey, let's Skype instead. So he got on Skype with me at the time and just kind of told me what was what.
Cool.
And yeah, it was amazing. And we were talking around the time about me being in Dublin and doing the work that I was doing, and how I felt that I wanted more. Not that I wanted more work, but I wanted to be involved in my passion. I wanted to be more involved in music. And he was telling me that oftentimes the best place to be is where all the music is created. And when you think about that, Dublin is an amazing city, and there's incredible music has come out of Dublin, but it's a smaller place. Whereas when you come to a city like London, it's a much bigger place, and there's a massive amount going on all the time. So it was great advice. I was very skeptical, not of him, but of myself, about moving to a big city. And initially I was thinking, well, I'll go to London for a bit and then move over to the US, hopefully.
Right.
So I came here to answer your actual question. I came here for a visit. And I remember coming out of the train station at London Bridge, walking over London Bridge and just looking around me and saying, why didn't I come here when I was 18?
Right.
It was just a big city. There was loads going on. And I was a real home bird. Loved Dublin. I still love Dublin. It's an amazing city. It's where I'm from. It's, every time I go back, I fall in love with it all over again.
Yeah.
But I just experienced something completely different. And I'd been in New York, and I'd been in the States, but there was something about the city that just kind of took over. And every time I came over on short trips, I met different engineers and different producers, and I had a lot of failed meetings as well, because I was doing probably similar to what you did when you moved here, just trying to contact as many people as I could, just find out about them. It wasn't about me, it was about them, what they had been doing, because it was all these people lived here, all these amazing musicians and producers and engineers, and I just wanted to learn about them and find out how they how did they become so good? And I was really lucky in that I had a friend from university put me in touch with his cousin, who's a producer over here, who's such a really, such a nice guy. And he gave me a lot of great advice, sort of pointed me in the right direction. And he laid out the path very clearly in that, this ain't going to be easy no matter what you've done in Ireland and where you're coming from over here. It's going to be hard. The music industry at the moment is going through big change because it's about 6 years ago now. And it was, a lot of the big studios were closing. People were going into smaller studios. There's a lot of studios being bought up by bigger companies. And I also was in and out of post houses, and that's where things were looking to move the most. And that's where the opportunity popped up for me to move over to London was with a post house as a mixer. I was auditioned. I did all the interviews, everything, and that's where things were going to progress from. At the start of 2014, I was going to move over and take a role in one of those studios.
Right.
So that was all more or less a done deal. I left my job back home, told my mixing clients and my production clients and bands that I was working with back home that I was off to London. We could still kind of do some work remotely or whatever if the band still existed in 6 months' time.
Did they?
No, for the most part.
Right.
I did still work with, I'm joking, I did still work with people when I moved to London, but I moved over. I started from scratch in London. I left everything behind. It's quite difficult for, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, for when you move to a new city, nobody knows who you are. Nobody really cares what you've done, and you don't have a name for yourself. So I was quite happy in the knowledge that I'd done the groundwork and an opportunity had popped up for me, and I was going to go for that. And then the company that I had moved over to take the job with was taken over, and they didn't hire anybody new. So I was left in London going, okay,
Right.
what's next?
Yeah.
So instead of going back home with my tail between my legs, I stuck around, and lots of opportunities just popped up because I was open to it. I began to see what somebody like Dave Pensado was talking about. By being in a city like London, I ended up working on projects I would never have thought even existed. I bounced around a lot of different studios, some good, some terrible. Knocked on doors, got my way in, and that's something that you've experienced. Any freelancer will experience. But you meet people, and you meet some great people, and they you kind of find your people and your tribe, and you just look after each other on the way up again. It was essentially like starting from scratch again, but I was really lucky in that some of my clients from Dublin came back to me. Some of the animation sound design clients wanted me to do some pretty big work with them, and a project with them and our national broadcaster, RTE and CBBC. So that came in, and at the same time, and this is my point about being in a city like London or any big city, I started working with a company that created IVR systems, which are interactive voice response systems.
Right.
Those annoying systems that you call that have the automated person on the other end of it. Press 1 for this, press 2 for this.
Right.
And I started recording endless amounts of prompts for this company.
Cool. Yeah.
They had all these. It's not the coolest, but it was good work. And I was doing this work, and it just popped up. It was just another one of those gigs, and then I started producing those. Started writing the scripts for these, and using your critical ear as an engineer to adapt to those situations. And all of these things have a reason why they pop up in your life, because that company started to work on voice assistants, and now you see things like the Amazon Alexa and the Google Home. So I was exposed to that quite early, and it's just how things work. That when you're in a city like London, I still work on music all the time. I still have music clients. I'm still writing music. I still produce music for people. I still have animation gigs that I do. I'm not working on any big animation series at the moment because my games work takes up a massive amount of my time. But it's just those opportunities that just pop up. So when the games work popped up, I said, well, I've always been fascinated by games. I've always been interested in everything to do with entertainment. This would be an incredible industry to work in. So as soon as that opportunity popped up, I went for it, and I've been doing it now I've been working full time in the games industry for the last year and a half.
Right. That's awesome, man. That's such a fascinating story, to be honest.
It's just there's a lot of twists and turns, but
Yeah, exactly. But I guess my question is, how did you, when you found yourself, should I go home to Dublin? Should
yeah.
I, move home? What was going on in your brain for the next few days when you decided, no, I'm going to stay? How was it like?
Chaos.
Yeah. Because I've
No,
had
it's
those
fine.
moments where I thought I should just, London's not for me. It's crazy, but then you for some reason stay anyway, and it sort of sorts itself out. Was it similar to your experience?
Yeah, I think a lot of people move to London, and I'm sure it's the same at moving to any big city, and they move home very quickly. But I've been told by other people, I was very lucky. I had a lot of friends here from college, from university that lived here already, and they're incredibly helpful. Because I think if I'd have moved here on my own without any friends, that would have been a different story. Because there's one thing having a professional network that you have to build, but having a personal network is in quite what can be an impersonal city is a different story. So I was very lucky that I had that. So I did have some people here. My brother moved about 2 months after I moved. My brother moved here as well. So I had family here, which is
Right.
something that's, again, it's totally different because you got your family around you. You got somebody that's gonna advise. But he moves after that all that decision had been made. It all happened quite quickly. That it was clear that the opportunity here was not really going to work out. I was actually offered a job back home. I was offered a job in another studio back home
Right.
within the time that I had moved, and I hadn't moved into this other job. But I turned that down like a crazy person, because like you, I just sort of said no. I want to live in London. I want to be where all these things are happening, and I want to pursue what I'm most passionate about. And I think being here is important. And yeah, there's something about it that kept me here. I didn't plan on living here for. I only planned on being here about 6 months to a year, and then probably moving over to the States, and
Right.
I'm here 6 years now. So there's something about the city, and like I said, being open to those opportunities, and not just saying I'm a musician, all I do is write music, or all I do is produce music, or engineer, record, or mix music. Being open to those other opportunities that are available within audio uh, is incredibly important, because it's important for your ears, it's important for your musicality as well, to work on different things. And when you have those skills and you're able to just slot in and out of different companies or different environments, you'll never be out of work. I know that that's a huge part of what you do. That's a huge part of the skills that you want to give to people, and you want to impress upon people, is that these skills of being entrepreneurial and adaptable.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's a huge part of it, is just being open to taking on some gigs that you might initially look at and say, oh, I don't know anything about this, or I'm not I don't record prompts for a phone system.
Exactly.
Something like that could keep you in work for 6 months while you're writing an album,
Exactly.
and there's nothing wrong with it there's absolutely nothing wrong with it as well. But instead of working in a bar,
Mm-hmm.
again, bar work is some of the most honest work you can ever do. Or working in a restaurant, maybe you can go and do that while you're doing something else, or maybe you'll get into it and end up working at Google as a conversation designer or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's so true, man. I mean, like, that's something I do talk a lot about myself, like diversifying, why it's so important. And it's exactly, what you said, because, it's better, or maybe not better, but it might feel better to be able to make a living in audio music, but it might not be exactly what you want, but you never know if that thing might lead you back to what you want to do. That's happened to me many times. I know
very
people,
much so. Yep. Go
yeah.
on.
No, like people like when I talked to Andrew Sheps, like he said even after huge records he did with like Adele, and one of those records, he at some point had to diversify. He like installing home theater systems, even after done a huge record. So it can happen to anyone, but as long as you can stay in the world of music or audio, I think you're super well off.
I agree, and Andrew Sheps would say it a lot better than me as well. He's amazing. He's
Yeah.
he's just on a different plane altogether. And for somebody like him to have that knowledge, to know that okay, I've done he's however many records, incredible records he's done, all the music work he's done. To know that at times there are always going to be lean periods, and there's nothing wrong with maybe doing spec work, maybe just working with an artist and saying, you know what, I'm going to work with this person because I think they're cool. Okay, they might not be paying me great money, or they might not be paying me any money, but you don't know if you might be working with the next Adele.
Hmm.
And if you're working with the right people, and I don't mean the right people as in these people are very well connected, I mean the right people as in good people, that all comes back to you. When you look after people and when you treat people well, it comes back to you, regardless of, might not be from them, but it'll come back to you from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and it's a huge part. Like I said, when I came here and I had my friends who looked after me when I arrived, and a good network of people pretty much straight away, which I was blessed to have. That's huge. I'll always remember that,
Mm-hmm.
and people do remember you, good or bad. So if you look after people and you do good work, and you're honest, and you look after them the right way, they'll remember that. And if it's not them, somebody else will look after you. So yeah, I don't see anything wrong with somebody saying, okay, right now I'm not getting the gigs as a live recording engineer or sorry, live mixing engineer for bands. That's what I really want to do, but here's this gig that I'm going to get recording bands in studio, or something completely different. Like I said, recording whatever for somebody, recording for a tech company, recording AI voices, or editing audio. Just editing is a huge space.
Mm.
There's always editing work out there, and it's like I said, you can do it from anywhere. There's no harm in doing any of that as long as you don't take your eye off the ball. As long
Exactly.
as you don't realize that, okay, well, long term, I actually want to be producing music. I want to be writing music. For me personally, I've never stopped writing music, producing music, and mixing music with people, or for people and with people, because ultimately that's my passion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm most happy doing.
Mm-hmm.
Working in games or working on feature films, working in animation is incredible, and there are amazing opportunities that I would never change. But I'm most passionate about the music work that I do, and teaching people about that as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, as long as you don't take your eye off that. For me personally, there are times when you can say, well, I could just sit here and record this stuff all day every day, and I'd be okay. But are you going to be fulfilled? And that's the constant trade off, and that's the thing about being creative as well.
Mm-hmm.
At a point in your career, it's good to take on lots of different work and get yourself out there and spread yourself around, and get a lot of knocks, because I know that it might not sound um, might not sound great, but take the hits, because that teaches you humility, it teaches you to be humble, it teaches you to respect people, respect people's time. There's a lot of competition out there, and if you show up and you've got any sort of bad attitude, you're not going to get the work.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that anybody who comes into any gig has a bad attitude, but to get a gig in audio and to get music gigs are quite difficult, because there are so many people that want to do it. So when people do get them, the attitude is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of knocks. There are times when you might do a gig and you don't get the pitch that you go for, or you don't get what you're looking for. There's failure involved in any industry. So the reason why I'm saying for people to expose themselves to more things is because they'll experience the no's quicker. You get a lot of no's, and then you get yeses, and you get more yeses than no's. Things start working out quite well.
Yeah, exactly, man.
But yeah, the main point is just, don't get comfortable, but always be looking for those opportunities. Mm-hmm. Keep your eye on what you want to do, but look for those opportunities that pop up, which I'm sure popped up for you as well, where you're doing a gig that you didn't think you'd do, but there it is.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, it's very true, man, and it's a fascinating thing, this industry in that sense. You never know when something can pop up, and yeah, like you said before, it might be the least unexpected, but can turn out something cool. But one thing I was thinking about, I don't know what you said exactly, but maybe we talked about it before. But like, there's so many people who study audio or music, but they don't necessarily teach you, the other part of being a freelancer. Like, because we all are essentially freelancers, either we want it or not when we start out. And it's funny that the schools don't really talk about that at all. It's quite a shame. Because going for a first job, and I think I did this wrong as well, is you always talk about yourself, like you did. You said you talked about the people you wanted to meet, right, in the beginning. Like that is how you get contacts, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to know their story. I wanted to know everything about them. I wanted to know, how did you do this? How did you go from nothing to winning Grammys? Or just it wasn't even that. It was just guys who had a job in a studio in Ireland that I was fascinated by. How have you got this job? How are you getting paid to do this?
Yeah.
It didn't really matter what they were getting paid. I was interested. I've always sort of, I was interested when I was playing even in school talent shows. I was interested in what the sound desk did, but I wasn't too interested in it. I was like, oh, you can put a cool delay on a vocal. Okay, back to playing guitar.
Yeah.
But then as things progress, you start to get more interested in it, and it was just always that. Being in studios, I was more and more interested in what those guys were doing, and then you see, you start to look at people like Rick Rubin. Go back to the Chili Peppers, seeing that somebody like Rick Rubin produces stuff, and Timbaland and people like that. Like, how do they do this, and how are they so prolific?
Yeah.
So starting to learn how to model those people, and not necessarily those people, but just anybody who you're interested in and who's done it already, will save you months, if not years.
Yeah, exactly, man. I want to talk to you about your website as well, Understanding Audio, because I think it's a great website, because you focus on the why to do things rather than the countless other how-tos, So what made you want to start a website like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've always been interested in teaching. I've always been a teacher. I used to teach guitar, and I've always, anytime I pick up a skill, I always wanted to share with other people. I think that came from just the environment that I grew up in, around lots of different musicians and lots of different creative people, that it stuck. I always wanted to pass my skills on when I learned something. I had a lot of very good teachers as well. So once I got to a level where I felt like I was doing pretty well, I knew that I can teach people these skills, because I made every mistake under the sun when it came to figuring out how to mix music and working music. I didn't really know what I was doing for a long period of time, and that includes actually studying it in university. And over time, I certainly got better at it, but I hated the fact that so many people didn't know what they were doing. And I used to get a lot of questions and worked with a lot of engineers in the studio, a lot of interns and assistants and people like that coming through, that they were searching for the answers as well, and they all had similar questions. So one of the things that I did many years ago before I left Ireland was I worked with Waves as part of what was called their street team.
Okay, what was that?
That was something. It was something that they created to, I think, essentially for marketing and brand awareness purposes. But they had a team of engineers and producers from all around the world come together and create tutorial videos for them. So I had them hosted on a site that no longer exists. It was a portfolio site that I used to just update whatever work I was doing at the time that nobody really cared about, because nobody really cared.
Yeah.
And I put the odd tutorial up there as well for Waves, and I created content for them.
Cool.
And they were probably terrible. I'm sure they're still out there. They're probably terrible videos, but I liked it. I liked what I was doing, and I liked the fact that I was helping people. Whether, even if it was just one small thing, or I got one tweet or email or something, somebody that said, "Hey, this really helped me," that made my day. And from then on, I was saying, okay, I definitely want to do this. I want to do this more, but never quite did it. I still help people. I still put up tutorial articles and things like that. But it wasn't until 2015 that I really started to think about, okay, I want to structure this in a really good way, and I want to start a site that has a brand, that has a name, isn't just about me, and is very clearly just about teaching. It's not about my portfolio work, isn't there? Nothing like that. It's very clear, separated out, and people can learn from it and benefit from it really well. And I definitely didn't want to just create tons of how-to videos. How-to videos are great. I have how-to videos on my site and on my channel, but it needed to be more than that for me. It needed to be about why we do those things. And a lot of it as well is about being a creative, the psychological blocks that a lot of people have when it comes to writing music, creating music, the pitfalls that people fall into and doubt themselves, and do I want to stay in London, that sort of thing. Not quite that, but am I good enough to do this? Can I ever do this? Can I ever be Andrew Chefs? Can I ever be Dave Pensado? Can I ever be Manny Marquine? Be Rick Rubin? And people get caught in that cycle of, I'll never be good enough. So that's a huge part of it as well, is when you understand why you're doing these things, and why, first of all, you want to mix, or why you want to create music, but why am I using EQ this way? Why am I using compression this way, rather than just how to compress, put a 4:1 ratio on, adjust attack release, that sort of stuff. Okay, fine, you know how to do it, but understanding why makes you adaptable. It makes you, it leaves you in a position where if you've got a complicated mix, or you've got something you haven't seen before, you know why you're doing it. You know why you're using a compressor, as well as how and when. So that's a huge part of it, and it's often overlooked. There's some amazing people out there that are way more qualified than me, like Dave Pensado that we mentioned already, that are teaching people. Warren Hewitt is another guy who's full of endless information, who has done some real stuff in the music industry.
Yeah.
There's a guy called Pete Woj, who's a friend of mine as well, he's similar to Dave Pensado, the way his brain works. My brain will never work like this, but he's got a website called Mix Better Now, which is a little quiet at the moment, and I'm on his case about that as well.
Yeah, I think that's where I found
he's
you,
incredible.
actually.
From Pete.
Yeah, I think so.
Pete's great. He needs to make more videos. If he ever watches this, which he probably won't, he needs to make more videos.
Yeah.
But there are some people out there just creating some incredible stuff.
Mm.
But it's very easy to be, I wouldn't say misled, but it's very easy to find the wrong information as well, or just find a simple how-to video and think, oh, once I know how to do this, I'll be able to mix and just get disheartened. So that's a huge amount of it as well. That's why I created. I wanted to stop people going through those frustrating times that I did, and having, just those experiences of I really don't know what I'm doing, and figuring out how to do it and how to do it the right way.
Yeah. Yes, it's a great website. So anyone who watches should check it out or listens. There will be a link, as always, below.
Right.
But it was awesome talking to you, Stephen. And your journey was fascinating with all the twists and turns. I guess there's many unanswered questions that are not coming to my mind right now, but there could be a part 2, I guess.
I have many questions about my own life. No, it's all good. It's all part of the journey, and anybody who's honest with you will have very similar stories. There's lots of left out, but there's a lot of crazy stories for people who've had at any level of success, especially in creative industry.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
It's just how you deal with it, and a huge amount of what you're focused on is teaching people those skills, how to get work, how to get clients, how to keep them, and how to have a nice career for yourself, which you've done. You've managed to start from essentially nothing in London as well, and progress yourself to the point that you're at now, and now you're giving back to people. And that it is doable. It's entirely possible, but you just have to keep focusing on what you want and going after it. And that why question is not just important to why you're mixing and why you're doing things a certain way when you're producing. It's, why do I want to do this? Why do I want to be a music producer? Or why do I want to be an engineer? And if you're asking yourself that question and you don't really know the answer, then it's probably not for you.
Yeah, exactly. Or if the answer is all money related, then the same thing.
If it's all money related, you're probably in the wrong industry.
Yeah.
For a good while, because there's so many people out there who are exceptionally good, who are gonna out hustle you because they're not focused on money. They're focused on serving their clients and serving the people that they work with and creating amazing stuff.
Yeah.
If focused on it purely for money, I want to get into music production, or I want to get into engineering for money, you're a crazy person.
Yeah. Exactly.
You get there for sure, but it's you're not going to have bucket loads of cash being thrown at you at the start. Living the rock star life is not going to happen straight away. No. So if anybody does want to do it as a career, the question is, why do I want to do it? And if you really want to do it, you will know why, and you'll go after it.
Yeah.
Whatever you have.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there was a time when I literally used to work or live week to week, especially in the beginning. Like you said, one gig come in, nothing else. Luckily, something else comes in the other week. That's how it is for a long time.
You have to get used to the sound of crickets.
Yeah, and it's stressful like hell. But there are ways. I think so. What's his name? Greg Wells. Because I like his Instagram. He seems very open about his struggles, and my take from it is like the ones who don't give up are the ones who, in the end, will succeed, and succeed as in be able to do what you love for a living, and all those sort of things.
Yeah, it's consistency. And the definition of being a professional at what you do, you know, everybody wants to be a professional musician or a professional audio engineer. You're a professional once people are paying you for your services. But
Exactly.
you're also a professional when you provide them with a great service. If somebody's paying you, okay, yeah, you're deemed a professional. But if you provide crappy results for them, they're not going to hire you again. So it's all about taking pride in what you're doing. And if you are getting paid and you're lucky enough to have somebody to, you know, take out their wallet and hand you cash or to pay you online or to do whatever, that you give them a great end product, no matter what that takes, and adding as much value as you can to their music and their project and their lives as you can, because that's, as you know, that's what it's all about. It's about relationships.
Exactly, man. Yeah, well put. But before we wrap up here, where can people find more info about you, your work, all those sort of things?
The best place to find me is over at understandingaudio.com. That is my main passion at the moment, is giving back as much as I possibly can. I get all sorts of emails and questions every single week from people. I want to create more videos and articles and content, and the best thing to do is, I have a YouTube channel where I post some of my videos, but the website itself has endless amounts of articles, and once you're on the mailing list, you get that straight into your inbox every single week.
Cool.
And not only that, if you do sign up, the best place to go first before you go to understandingaudio.com is getpromixes.com, because when you go there, you pop in your email address, you get a free guide, and that is all about reference mixes. And it's similar to what we spoke about with modeling somebody else's career. If you want to get good at creating music, producing music, and mixing music, the best thing you can do is listen to great music. Find out what your taste is. We all have a taste in music, but why you do have that taste, the things that inspire you. You know, why do you like it, the distortion on the bass guitar in a Muse track, or why do you like a delayed snare drum in Let's Dance or Nile Rodgers guitar? Figuring out those things and then training your ear using those references to apply it to your own mixes or your own productions. So there's an entire free guide there at getpromixes.com. If you don't want to get that for free, just check out understandingaudio.com. You can find out everything I want to teach you there. And if you want to find out more about me for whatever reason, it's on there too. You can drop me an email.
Cool.
And that's it.
Cool. Yeah, link to the ProMix Audio. Was it ProMix Audio? Am I wrong?
Getpromixes.com.
Getpromixes.com. There's a link to that too in below description, and the Understanding Audio, obviously. Awesome, Stephen. Well, thanks again for coming on. It was a big pleasure and awesome talking to you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Stephen, for coming on. It was awesome talking to you, and I hope you, the listener, enjoyed it as well. Again, check Stephen's website out with the link below, understandingaudio.com. And don't forget to download your free guide, 3 tested ways to increase your client base. Link to that as well in the description below. And I'll see you guys next week.